Welcome to Travel Like a Local, a travel series diving into the fascinating world of Japanese travel guides. In Japan, there are so many magazines and books aimed at helping Japanese people explore, and I've long been fascinated by the specific genres covered, such as city-based walking guides, health-focused city-based walking guides, walking in the mountain, walking routes from train stations, traveling alone, historical routes, routes for temple stamps, including a cat-themed version, bread, driving routes for delicious food, cafes, including subcategories like forest cafes. The list goes on. I grabbed some of the most interesting looking Japanese travel guides, all aimed at domestic tourists. We're gonna dive right into them and see what hidden gems we can uncover. I'm curious to see the kind of places aimed at Japanese travelers and if that differs from those recommended for international travelers. So whether you're living in Japan, a regular visitor, or researching for your first trip, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join me on new adventures each video. For this first video, I've decided to stick with my home city, Kobe, and where better to start than route number 1, Kitano Ijinkan and Tor Road. Here are some metrics for the route, including time taken, kilometers, steps, and how much money you'll need. And here are the stops we're going to use today. You can see there are 7 steps, and then there is a nice big clear map showing you the route you're going to walk. So let's go, let's get started. We are leaving from the south exit of Shin-Kobe station, and here we are walking towards Kitano Ijinkan, to our first stop. Here's where it all becomes a little bit uphill. You can't tell by the video, but it's really quite steep. Here we are, we have arrived at Uroko House. I remember at the ticket office they were trying to promote these passes that get you into several buildings, but there's several groups, so you've got to be careful which one you buy and which houses you actually want to go to, how much time you want to spend. And my husband here was just explaining to me that Uroko means like fish scales in Japanese. So that's why the house is called Uroko House, because of these slate tiles on the exterior. Everyone seemed to rub this hog's nose, so I did too. It says London. And then we went over to the sandbox.
I don't know how it works.
No, me neither. To be honest. Hello! Moshi moshi! So as you go up, there are 2 buildings. There's the house and the gallery. You can go in any order, but we decided we wanted to look at the house first. As you can see, it's very Western styled and made up as it would have been. Now for me, this was the best part of Uroko House, was all of these pictures on the walls that really helped to put the house in context. As a foreigner, when I was young, my great-grandparents lived in a big old farmhouse that wasn't too dissimilar from this kind of building and furnishings, so the pictures really helped me to put it back into context of Japan. As well as, of course, this suit of samurai armor. I thought this house was also really well maintained. Everything looked really good. Apparently this man on the left was the first person to bring golf into Japan. Here we go, let's see the stamps. This one says Uroko House. There was some interesting abstract art pieces on the top floor. And this sleigh. And downstairs, of course, there was the gift shop. There's a lot of tea. Arigato. Mite, you can buy inoshishi. Like on the coast.
This is quite new.
You can buy Disney things for some reason. Tode Kobe, that's a cute merchandise. Oh, I like the flowers. Oh, soap. Kawaii. And a soap dish. Or mini tray. Like doll's house. And you can get all the food. And some cats. This is interesting. Next we headed over into the gallery building. Petit Museum. Strangely on the ground floor it's full of cat things. Not a cat person, so I don't understand it. Let's take a picture together. The second floor had these pieces of art. Some I think were quite famous. There was one by Henri Matisse that I remember. And then finally on the top floor there is this lovely observation area. You get a good view out over Kobe. And of course a good view to the building work they're doing nearby. So off we go, we're going to walk over to our second stop, which is Holland House. Now the theming here is fragrance. It's like a fragrance house. So we bought our tickets. We're heading inside. Immediately you can see that a lot of space was taken up with photos showcasing all the celebrities that have visited. Okay, Nani?
No. Yes. Green cake.
And of course this quiz. You start with your blood type and then you figure out what kind of fragrance person you are. But I don't know my blood type, so I couldn't play. But my opinion about the Holland House is that it's all just a bit falling apart. As you can see, it doesn't seem to be very well maintained. The paint is chipping and flaking. And honestly, I don't know if this was a necessary stop unless you want to do the fragrance workshop. I think they make you your own perfume or bottle of fragrance, but that was an extra fee that we didn't really want to pay and do, so we skipped on that one, which made the whole house just a little bit less interesting. Yeah. You can kind of see outside as a prime example of what I mean about the maintenance. It's just a bit shoddy. So now we're gonna walk over to the next stop, which is Weathervane House, I think in English. It's the big red brick building that's kind of iconic of Kitano Ijinkan. It has the Weathervane on top, hence Weathervane House. But unfortunately it is closed. They're doing some renovations at the moment, I believe. But then it's only a short walk over to our next stop, Moegi House. The colour is just beautiful on the outside. And this seemed to be quite a similar quality to the first place, to Uroko House. Everything was much more maintained, but that said there were less furniture. Here is a picture of the damage done by the 1995 earthquake. The chimney fell through the roof. This balcony area was delightful, so light and lovely, nice to look out of. And here is said red brick chimney that fell in the earthquake. And now let's move on to the next stop. I don't know if it's a stop. The next thing on the list is Kitanozaka, Zaka meaning slope or hill. So it's basically the street back down to Sannomiya until you get to the next stop, which is Ikuta Jinja. And on the way, there is a very iconic landmark here on the right, Starbucks. If you are in the area, not interested in paying entrance fees, but still want to go into one of these old Western style buildings, Starbucks is a pretty good option for that. You just have to buy a coffee, of course. And now we're on our way for lunch. We have decided to use one of the cafes recommended in the travel guide as to stay true to what is being recommended. And this one is called Bistrot Café de Paris. And immediately when we went inside, the whole interior was booked out for a really big group that arrived later. So the only option for sitting was the terrace. We were really lucky that the weather was not so bad. It's getting a bit warmer. So we decided we'd stick with it and sit on the terrace. And we got the lunch set, which had this kabocha soup, salad, bread, and the main dish of your choice.
Together. Party.
It was okay. Here's my steak and my husband's beef. The main dishes themselves, like the meat part, was pretty good, but we both didn't really like the rice. It was very dry. And personally, I didn't understand why a French-themed cafe wouldn't just stick with potatoes. But maybe that's just my own bias because I want to eat potatoes. We also got coffee included at the end, and the service was just okay. And then for the coffee, instead of real milk, it was like the vegetable oil-based fat mixture. I wasn't very impressed with that. I didn't feel like that was very fitting. Anyway, let's walk on to our next and final proper stop, which is Ikuta Jinja. We went to Ikuta Jinja for midnight on New Year's Eve. That was actually the first ever video on this channel. Please check it out if you haven't already. But today is looking very different, much quieter, no festivities, just normal shrine day. There's a small, nice pond at the back of the shrine that I hadn't realised was there since the only time we'd gone was at night. And a bit further up, there's actually another small wooded garden area, which was quite nice to have a look at. We're starting the final stretch of our day out today. The last stop is here, Tor Road. It's just a long street that takes you back to Motomachi Station. There's a lot of cute shops, there's a cute tea house, there's some interesting hotels, buildings, there's an antique shop further down. Lots of interesting little places, and I think it's just an interesting way to get back to where you need to be. I'm not sure this is a highlight of the day, but since a whole itinerary is being provided, they are pointing out that this is a nice area to look in some shops, so I can understand why it's on there as an actual stop. But I do think that's one of the differences between what would be recommended to foreigners and what I recommended in these very specific itineraries. Everything I've read on English websites for foreigners, they mention a lot of the same places, but they're mentioning the places individually. It's kind of rare to get offered an in-depth itinerary like this. There are like day itineraries, in which case the morning would be Kitano Ijinkan, walk around, have a look, and then the afternoon would be somewhere else because it's usually just a one-day itinerary. But honestly, you'll see at the end here by the metrics, but I'm not sure I'd have it in me to do a whole nother round in the afternoon of a similar amount of walking and spending and things like that. That brings us to Motomachi Station and to the end of this route. Let's review together. Let's start with numbers. Here is what the guide told us this route would be. Was it accurate? Starting with time, We set off from Shinkobe station at 10:15 and have ended at 1:50, so that's 3 hours and 35 minutes. This is really close, but we did stop for lunch for 50 minutes, which was not included in the guide's time estimation, so I think the guide's estimation is too long. Next, steps. I've done 9,679 steps today. Being generous, let's say 1,500 were before starting. That makes the route 8,179 steps. Then distance, I've walked 7 kilometers today, so again, being generous, let's make that 6 kilometers. So those are both double the guide's estimate. I think the guide was only accounting for the walks between the stops, but the walking around the houses has also added up. Finally, fees. For a fair comparison, I checked the entrance fees for the 3 houses included, and it was 50 yen wrong, so I'd guess fees have changed somewhere since the guide was published. But in reality for us, including lunch and taking out Weathervane House, we spent 4,790 yen per person. I had a really nice time following this itinerary. Firstly, it took me to a part of Kobe I have not explored and almost even discounted as being uninteresting. Kitano Ijinkan is largely popular with Asian tourists who see this type of architecture less often than tourists from Europe. I'm from the UK, so I thought it would be less interesting. But as I mentioned earlier, I really enjoyed looking at the photos in Uroko House and placing this kind of familiar setting back into the unfamiliar context of Japan. Secondly, I loved having a set itinerary and not needing to spend time researching or planning how to spend the day. That said, there were many cafe and restaurant recommendations for the area on the pages following the route itself. I've highlighted these on the My Maps link included in the description. I like the way that this was left a little more open and up to you to incorporate when and where suited you. Finally, I really like the inclusion and highlighting of certain historical or interesting streets that linked up some of the bigger stops that could have been really easy to just pass through without much thought. Then for downsides, this guide took no notice of the discount package tickets. There are many houses and buildings in Kitano Ijinkan that you can pay to enter, and there are 3 main groups of buildings that sell discount ticket entries into several of the houses. The 4 places recommended on the route are split across all 3 groups, so you really can't take advantage of those at all. I also wouldn't have included Holland House as someone worth entering unless you want to take part in the fragrance school. But this experience costs an extra 3,100 yen for a small 10 milliliter bottle of fragrance made for you. I mean, it looked fun, but we were on a bit of a budget and didn't really want to spend the extra money. And finally, the numbers and the metrics in the magazine were just way off. So if time or budget are an issue, it definitely requires double checking that before setting off. While thinking about the differences between these Japanese guides and the English recommendations available online, it really stuck out to me that the organization into a timeline, like a key itinerary, was the big difference. English guides online tend to talk about these sites individually and leave all the scheduling and choice of where to go up to you. And then when there is an itinerary, it's often aimed at exploring the whole city in a short time. International tourists are usually traveling to many places in one trip, so I think the time difference is really key. As someone living in Japan, I'm lucky enough to be able to enjoy the slower pace and more in-depth travel that is suggested in these guides. But that's just what I think. Please let me know what you thought in the comments and if there's anywhere you would like to see me go in the future. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like. And if you want to see more like this, please subscribe to see future videos. See you in the next one.